All right, let's dive in. We are cracking open a historical cold case that has been hiding in plain sight for more than 500 years. Yeah, you heard that right. Today, we're auditing a royal murder. And trust me, we have the receipts. So, get this. We all think we know the story of the Battle of Bosworth, right? The final, bloody clash of the Wars of the Roses. But what if that whole story is just a cover? What if the death of King Richard III wasn't some random casualty of war, but a meticulously planned corporate assassination? Okay, so here's our first piece of evidence, straight from a chronicle written at the time. Notice, it doesn't just say the king died in the fighting. No. It names a specific guy, William Gardner, a weapons maker from London. It even tells us the weapon he used. This isn't just a battle report. This feels more like an indictment. So yeah, the history books, they give us this simple story of a king falling bravely in battle. But when you start digging into the financial records, the secret pardons, the warrants, they all point to something much, much darker. This wasn't a battle casualty. It was a planned murder. Let's set the scene of the crime. It's August 22nd, 1485. King Richard III is cut down on the battlefield. And just like that, the Tudor dynasty begins. But the closer you look, the less the chaos of that day looks like a war, and the more it starts to resemble the cold, hard precision of a hostile takeover. So, who on earth could pull this off? Well, the evidence trail leads us away from the muddy battlefield and straight into the financial heart of London, to a group we're calling the Unicorn Syndicate. Our prime suspects aren't rival dukes or princes, but a hugely powerful merchant family operating entirely in the shadows. Meet the Gardners. These guys were the masterminds. We're talking about a dynasty of wool merchants who controlled insane amounts of money and had their fingers in every part of London's political machine. They had the wealth, they had the influence, and they definitely had the motive to operate completely off the books, pulling all the strings from behind the scenes. And like any good shadowy organization, they had their own signature tool. They called it the Unicorn Cipher. Now, this wasn't just some fancy logo. It was a whole sophisticated system. They used a brass unicorn seal to mark their smuggled goods, to authenticate secret orders, and to run a completely hidden banking network. I mean, this system was the logistical backbone for their entire operation. They were using it to mark untaxed wool, send coded messages to their operatives, secure secret loans for their projects, and of course, to launder all the profits. A full-service criminal enterprise, all stamped with a little unicorn. Now, a coup of this size, it costs a fortune. It needs a massive black budget. So, you know what they say, let's follow the money. To put it in today's money, the Gardner syndicate dodged an estimated £11.6 million in royal taxes. Think about that. They skimmed a fortune right from the crown's own treasury to bankroll the very army that was coming to overthrow it. The audacity is just staggering. So how did they turn wool into a war chest? Well, it was a pretty simple and kind of brilliant three-step scheme. First, they used their control over the port at Calais to make 10,000 sacks of wool just disappear from the official books. Vanish. Second, they avoided all the hefty royal taxes on that wool. And third, they funneled those massive, untaxed profits directly to Henry Tudor to pay for his invasion. All right, so we have the means, the smuggling operation. We have the motive, money and power, and we have the opportunity. So now we're heading back to Bosworth for the smoking gun. This is the direct evidence of how the Gardner brothers themselves executed the final phase of their plan. And it turns out this was a coordinated two-man job. You have William Gardner, the assassin, a weapons expert whose only job was to get to the king and deliver that final fatal blow. And on the other side, his brother, Sir Thomas Gardner. Get this, he was pardoned for inciting riots the day before the battle. His job was clearly to create a diversion, a disturbance, to lure King Richard right into a tactical trap. This wasn't the chaos of war. It was a choreographed hit. And the payoff for these services? Well, just days after the battle, guess who's leading the welcome parade for the new King Henry VII in London? Richard Gardner. The family was immediately showered with rewards. We're talking valuable lands, prestigious titles, and, you guessed it, official pardons for any lingering crimes. I mean, case closed, right? But the story doesn't actually end there, because for a conspiracy this huge to actually work long-term, you have to erase it from history. So now we're looking at a 500-year cover-up and how this syndicate methodically and brilliantly scrubbed itself from the official record. The cover-up started immediately. Right after the coup, their role gets downplayed in the official stories. A few decades later, a monk from the family literally rewrites the history of the battle, turning it into some divine prophecy and erasing their financial role. Their descendants then become key players in the Reformation. Then, in 1666, the Great Fire of London coincidentally destroys their headquarters, the Unicorn Tavern. And finally, they export their influence to the New World with the Quakers. It's a masterclass on how to disappear. Which, of course, leads us to the final, tantalizing question. This kind of wealth, this kind of power and influence, it doesn't just evaporate, it has to go somewhere. So where did it all end up? So what's the endgame? Well, on one hand, you have a modern family trust claiming the crown owes them a 500-year-old debt for that initial skim, a debt they estimate today at $2.5 billion. And on the other hand, a direct descendant, Robert Andrew Gardner, is a life peer in the House of Lords. And his job? Deputy Speaker, a role that sounds an awful lot like his ancestor's job, auditing the crown's finances. So you have to wonder, was the most successful corporate coup in history settled not with cash, but with a quiet centuries-long payment in power and prestige? The receipts are all there. It's up to us to decide.